I think it's the appreciation for the audience and someone perceiving the theater, the performance that's going on. How is the audience perceiving everything from the sightlines, the sounds, to what, AV system is working in the background that's either visible or invisible. So it's an appreciation. You're changing your mind from an occupant to a person experience something. So how are they experiencing the theater?
Welcome to Sightlines, the podcast all about the process of designing live performance spaces to enable new forms of storytelling, expression, understanding, and suspended disbelief. Today we're diving into the design process of an architecture firm tasked with a major renovation of a multi-purpose venue. I'm Dan Nagel, founder and CEO of Tech Direction, and today's episode is proudly hosted at Blythe Memorial Hall in Blythe, Ontario. Are you passionate about designing and building performance spaces? Whether you're an architect, a theater manager, a technical designer, or simply curious about the art of creating spaces for the performing arts, this podcast is designed for you. Join us for an exclusive session featuring a very special guest, Jason Morgan, principal of JPM Architecture. Jason has worked on a wide variety of projects, including the renovation of Blythe Memorial Hall. JPM specializes in heritage restoration, among other projects. In today's episode, Jason will cover how architects approach theater spaces and work with consultants who have deep knowledge of theater systems. We'll explore how they overcome design challenges to create functional and creative spaces that truly meet their clients' needs. For more information, resources, or to get in touch with our team, visit our website at techdirection.com or find us on social media. If you have specific projects you need help with, email us at projects@techdirection.com. Let's dive in. So, tell us about JPM Architecture and what you guys are working on.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Dan, for having me. And we're a small town firm, so we've been around for about 30 years. And being from a small town, we do a wide, range of different projects. So it could be anything from a small house addition to a brand new arena or a brewery. Being one of the only architects in the county and in the region, we tend to get exposure to a wide variety of different jobs. So every week is different. There's a new challenge, literally every day.
Yeah.
We usually have 40, 50 active jobs at any one time. So juggling those and trying to become experts in a wide variety of different building types is an enjoyable challenge, and including theater design. And inevitably, a small town like Blythe, you have a great local performance stage and venue. We were invited to be involved in that. Our firm specializes in heritage restoration.
Space,
very, very much so. Try to capture the essence of the space and, rejuvenate it, bring it back to its, original glory, I guess. Other composition of our firm, we do a lot of residential, multi-residential projects, but we'll work with municipalities too on updating municipal facilities. It could be arenas, it could be community halls, it could be municipal buildings, offices. A small town firm that, we just dabble in essentially everything that comes across our plate.
Yeah. Do it pretty well.
We try, for sure.
I guess we should say too, we are in Blythe, Ontario, and this is part of Huron County. And Blythe Festival is the organization that operates out of this building, which is Blythe Memorial Hall. And they have a rehearsal space that's the Phillips stage. And they also have a newer outdoor space that is the Harvest stage.
Correct.
Which you also worked on, right?
Yes, exactly. We had the fortune of being invited to participate in that. And the added challenge of, being in COVID and trying to move out of the hall and try to, get fresh air, have space, adequate space between people. And the Harvest stage was a good fit for them at the time. And continues to be really interesting space. And having attended some shows myself, it's just the atmosphere, the hearing the bugs and the bees and the birds chirping in the background, and just sort of just brings a great outdoor atmosphere to the theater. With the design, an interior space is one thing, but an exterior performance stage, obviously a whole bunch of other things to consider, just the weather, the wind, the sun.
You're at the mercy of Mother Nature.
Exactly. They do a lot of evening, nighttime shows, and then you have the interest, the visual interest, the lighting effects you can do. You experience the sunset, you experience, the wind and different things that just naturally occur. It's interesting venue.
Yeah, and it's where we are is a pretty rural area, right?
Yes.
So
Yeah.
in Blythe at least, so that stage is like hearing the bugs and everything. It really is quiet. Like it's
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
it's a very cool environment. It's not side of the highway or any of that
it's
kind of
beside
thing.
a recreational hiking trail.
Yeah.
So you get the odd passerby taking a peek at the show type of thing, but it's essentially very secluded, and it gives you that rural atmosphere.
Yeah, that's cool. So what are some of the projects that you're currently working on that you can talk about, you can share with us?
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be
A
theaters.
huge variety, for sure.
Yeah.
I can't think of any active theater projects we're working on, but very interesting office building designs. Larger office buildings with operations hub type of atmosphere where they're bringing multiple different departments into one building, and the challenge of how the different departments interact in common spaces, lunchrooms, training rooms, collaboration spaces, fleet storage type thing. It's a utility in Southern Ontario, and lots of affordable housing, multi-residential housing projects on the go, lots of heritage restoration projects. Southampton Museum, Bruce County Museum, doing restoration there on their 1878 schoolhouse building.
Oh, cool.
So it's the tower restoration and masonry and some roofing replacements there. But again, 40 or 50 active jobs. We have lots of custom homes, cottages, interesting things on the lake, those type of things, but lots of municipal work and just cool projects and cool design opportunities. Just that's what I sort of like doing myself, is more on the design front end type of work.
Great. What's your favorite kind of project to work on?
We're fortunate enough to see such a wide variety. I don't have a specific favorite type of project, but it's more the phase. Like I'm more interested in the front end design sort of heavy portion of it.
Yeah.
So I enjoy the conceptual designing, the client interactions, the community group meetings, and trying to pull and extract out what they're looking for. Are there unique design opportunities just from creating a bit of a story, a bit of a narrative for the project that I can extract from working on a City Hall expansion design project in Woodstock. And, part of that narrative is delving into the history and what made Woodstock, the city it is today, and extracting some of those heritage elements to pull into the very contemporary addition onto City Hall. Right. So it's finding the story, finding what makes that space and that site unique, and extracting those elements and creating something special that's very well suited to that site, but not necessarily somewhere else. So
Right.
That's sort of my favorite part.
Yeah. That's cool. Okay. Which part of being an architect is your favorite? Like what excites you when you get up in the morning that day you're going to do this?
Yeah, it comes down to the design. I do have an entrepreneurial side too. I like running the business, and I like the management and the money side of things as well, and writing the proposals and crafting a schedule, a timeline, an overall master plan for a project. I enjoy that, but what gets me out of bed is the design process and coming up with that design, making the presentation, and getting that initial, typically awesome reaction from the client. And wow, it's amazing. Like, we really love it. And hearing that feedback, that's what makes it special, I think.
Yeah. I've been in a couple of those meetings with you, and it's really cool. Getting that kind of the satisfaction of they're finally seeing it for the first time, that you've been kind of ruminating on it and figuring it out, and then getting to present it.
Exactly. So getting that, and it typically turns out very well. There's always little comments here and there, but if you listen well and you incorporate everything the clients asked for, generally it runs pretty smooth. And that's what I think the most is putting the effort in, doing the research, putting a good design together that's well suited for that particular space or that particular site, and getting the ultimate reaction and feedback from the client.
Can you tell us about this space and how the client came to you and kind of what their goals were, if you can remember?
So the client put out an RFP, I guess a request for proposal, for multiple firms to come and make a submission. We're awarded the project, but it just came to be that they recognized there was just a whole bunch of little things that added up to mean, not as special of a performance space as what it could have been. Major things like structural issues, lots of reverberation in the floor, the balcony, in the stage, mechanical issues, lack of fresh air, heating, cooling, very hot in the summertime, the reverse in the wintertime, lack of heat, and trying to make it more functional for the theater itself to operate. And that could be everything from the AV systems to house lighting to performance lighting, all the pipe and grid network for both curtains and for theatrical lighting. Yeah, wayfinding, life safety, like it's just a incredible list of issues that they were facing since inception. But yeah, that was sort of the genesis of the project. And yeah, you try to peel the onion, peel the layers down to find out, what all those issues are and come up with a complete list of project goals and requirements.
So do you remember roughly what year this building was built originally? So what you were working with going into the project?
Yeah, now you're testing my memory. 1920, I think, is the original Memorial Hall infrastructure that they're dealing with.
Yeah, with multiple iterations over the years of renovations and little bits and things. Yeah,
exactly. Yep. So we're dealing with a century-old building that's settled and was fabricated, by local craftspeople, and they use the materials, the goods, and the skills they had at the time, but don't meet today's requirements as far as vibration criteria or occupant load and that sort of thing. Again, one of the big things was reinforcing the floor that we're sitting on right now. It was just massively undersized and lots of vibration, and the floor had settled. And yeah, even though it's raked, it wasn't a continuous rake, and we had to stabilize everything, reinforce everything from the foundations all the way up, reinforce the floor joists, the decking, sheathing, just everything from the basement all the way up. So
yeah, huge project.
We have photos of this space here, and it's just a complete, the floor is essentially just blasted completely away, and there's nothing here, and we're starting to build it from scratch.
Yeah. So when thinking about this space and kind of how that started and the process of it, is there anything that surprised you about a theater space that was different from other spaces that you had worked on, that was a unique factor that you had to consider?
Yeah, I think it's the appreciation for the audience and someone perceiving the theater, the performance that's going on. How is the audience perceiving everything from the sightlines, the sounds, to what AV system is working in the background that's either visible or invisible. So it's an appreciation. You're changing your mind from an occupant to a person experience something. So how are they experiencing the theater? Is it a comfortable seat? Do they have good sight lines? How intimately can they interact with what the performers are doing on the stage? They're entering this fictional world, and you're trying not to distract them with noises and creaks and mechanical systems, humming in the background. You want them to be focused on what's being displayed and experience that in an intimate way. So it vastly is different from other buildings where you're trying to have them focus on a singular point and really step away from reality for a couple hours. And it's almost like you're trying to dissolve the building or the space around them to focus on something.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah.
Versus a typical building where you're actively trying to experience the building around you.
Yeah, that's a cool way of looking at it. Yeah, it's often said that it's suspending disbelief is making theater. And it's kind of dissolving the room around you as part of that, as you're in a different place.
Yeah.
In terms of the stakeholders, was that a completely different thing coming into this building from other projects?
No, very similar.
Very similar?
Very similar. Yeah. So every job, there's stakeholders, and it could be anything from an individual to 20 different user groups, So this was somewhere in the middle where they had, the township owns the building and leases it to the Blythe Festival. You have the Blythe Festival group. You have other user groups who use the community hall downstairs. There's a kitchen, lots of other community groups, the art gallery users in this case. There's, let's say, 5 or 6 different user groups, and you're meeting with them. They all have different requirements, needs, wants, and trying to sort through that. And ultimately you're working, in this case, for the township who owns the building. And you're trying to take in all the wants and requests and sort it out to ultimately get something that fits everybody.
Yeah. Make as many people happy as you can. You'll never make them all happy, but
Game theory, I guess. Everyone loses something but wins.
Yeah. Finding those compromises. Yeah. This building specifically, but it's also common in other theaters, is not like we should talk. We're sitting in the theater right now, but there are dressing rooms. There's a green room. There's the backstage area. There's the tech prep areas off stage. There's the loading dock. There's the lower level. There's the
community hall.
Yeah, community hall that it can be used for meetings, but it can also be overflow for like during intermission of
They
the
use an
show.
intermission.
Yeah,
Prep space.
and then this building is also continues on to offices for the theater and rehearsal hall and
Like
the
I
art
mentioned,
gallery,
the art gallery,
and, yeah, box office.
Yeah.
So it's really a combined space with lots of different stakeholders that won't necessarily be the people paying, but they all need to be able to use the space in a different way. Yeah.
And to keep it multi-purpose, easy to operate, adaptable, because not only does the festival use it, but they have touring musicians groups, school groups come in and use the stage. So to keep it easy for outside user groups to come in and easily do their performances, adapt it, and make it for themselves as well as the festival.
And not be too much work for anyone to have to pull something off. It's not a complete change of use case kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Cool. Okay. So if you were to go back in time and give yourself any advice about how to go through this process or things to watch out for, is there anything that you can think of that would be I wish I knew that going into it, or that kind of
thing? Probably.
Aside from like you open up the floor and
I was just going to mention that. If obviously we had X-ray vision or the capability of investigating the structure, I think that would be the biggest surprise. It's not only the floor we're sitting on, the main theater auditorium space, but the stage itself was understructured. Even so much as we were concerned, a school group would come in and there'd be a team of dancers all jumping at the same time and fall through the floor. It was pretty dramatically undersized, I guess. And there was that concern. Even the roof structure needed some reinforcement. And so it's the structure would have been nice to know going into the project what we would be dealing with or uncovering. But other than that, actually, there weren't a lot of surprises, or I don't think I could have benefited from, in hindsight, knowing anything ahead of time when we had first started.
Yeah, it was a pretty good team of people going into it, right? That
I think so.
Figured it out.
Yeah, exactly. You just roll the punches and adapt to what you're given.
Yeah. I think that's one of the biggest things about this space is something comes up. It's not a showstopper. It's a figure it out and make the best of it. Yeah.
No, for sure.
Yeah. Between what you've done with other stages, because we talked earlier off screen about some other performance spaces that weren't necessarily theaters. What would you say about a interior theater space like this? What would be the most complicated part of it compared to other performance spaces that you've worked in?
I guess it's the other performance spaces, they have AV systems and, I guess concerns about sightlines and visibility. But I guess in this instance, it's a functioning building. There's dozens of different systems that all have to work well together.
Right.
So it's bringing all those systems, visible or invisible together to make sure they're working correctly. Whereas, an outdoor stage, you're kind of obviously limited to the raw structure, the essence of what the thing is. It has a stage, it has a roof, it has some AV systems, but it doesn't have all those superfluous things. Sprinkler systems and mechanical HVACs and everything.
Offices and
a working, functioning building. Washrooms and art gallery displays, commercial kitchens, full commercial kitchens to allow preparation of 200 people downstairs for an event while the theater is operating upstairs. So it's all those facets interacting together in one building, which is different than a almost single use, design for an outdoor stage, or it's just a band shell. It's just a stage for weekend performances for musicians. You don't have to anticipate 12 different activities happening.
Right. Yeah. It's more of a single use. Yeah.
And then down to life safety issues, exit signs, emergency lighting. Mention the sprinklers, but just thinking about egress and accessibility. It's a working building. You need to bring in, a 5-year-old and a 95-year-old all in the same space.
Yeah. How does that work with the harvest stage? Do you need some kind of an egress plan with?
Absolutely. Yep. So it's very, I guess, similar thought process.
Yeah.
It's an outdoor place of assembly, but
just a lot more places to go.
A lot more places to go. So every aisle is an egress path in that case. So you dump out onto some grass and you're good to go.
Yeah.
But you're still mentally thinking through the process. And for us at the harvest stage, they utilized some salvage sea cans. Right. So they use that to create some upper stage platforms. So we're thinking about egress for the actors too. How do they egress in the event of a fire or emergency too?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So we have to keep that in mind in that instance. But there's just more involvement with this type of indoor theater space.
So back to the indoor, how did the seating layout overall influence the design of the theater? Was this, like in this situation, it was a existing layout, right? That you were trying to maintain as many seats as you could, kind of thing?
Yeah, it was an existing layout, and they had actually more seats that we started with. And the issue there was the knee space, the width of the seats.
Yeah, comfort.
In the last 50 years, people seem to have gotten maybe a little larger. We have to accommodate for increased seating width, but also knee space. People generally in the population are taller, and the knee space was just too crushing in the old design. And, back when the theater started, there wasn't a whole lot thought given to accommodating accessibility. So we have to plan for removable, adaptable seats. So we're thinking about flexibility. So the first couple rows, we can have removable seats so they can remove them. And if they want to bring in, a surplus of people with mobility issues or in wheelchairs, we can accommodate that.
Yeah.
The folding arms in every fifth seat has basically a folding arm. So you can transition from a wheelchair into the seat, beside the aisles.
Yeah, I think we're sitting in one of those rows right now.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so the seating, the sight lines weren't the greatest in the old seats. So we're looking at the plan, we're looking at elevations, the raked floor, make sure the sight lines are improved. But the advantage is obviously you're more comfortable during the performance, but the downside is you're losing quantity and the number of seats. But it was a compromise, and we went back and forth, but ultimately it's improving sight lines and improving comfort for the theater experience. Yeah.
And so in this space, is it the center seats that can come out to be wheelchair seats in the front couple rows?
Yes. Yeah.
And I think in the back
in
row
the back,
as well.
We also have
and then obviously this space.
Yep.
Yeah.
And the accessible seating, the idea is you have accessible seating, but you also have a couple seats besides because,
for companions or
companionable seats. And you want to have the ability for their partners, their friends, family to come join them too.
I wanted to talk a little bit about the things that the audience doesn't really see happen in a theater. That if somebody's thinking about renovating a theater and they might not be involved in the production of a performance, the production table here was a big discussion and something that came up quite a bit. Can you talk a little bit about how that came about and what that basically meant to the design from the architecture side of it?
Not a huge part of my design requirements or anything. I was more working with people like yourself, I guess, to understand how it functions and what the requirements were.
Yeah.
We had to adapt some of the seating around it, obviously to make sure it's placed correctly. It didn't disrupt sight lines. There's good visibility and I guess connectivity for the operator. Yeah, again, it's just one of those facets and I guess learning opportunities for us to find out, how it functions, what do you need, what's the best placement, asking the questions, trying to extract all the details and try to find the best placement and opportunity.
Yeah, in this space specifically, it's right at the back of the room. And a lot of theaters, they want it center, right?
Exactly.
It's got to be kind of center of the audience. And
did have it at one point, I think 4 or 5 rows in from the back. And then that was kiboshed and just because of access and obviously disruption to audience.
Yeah. It's something that in a lot of new designs that we see, it's that battle of trying to get that access to make it possible without losing too many seats or without it being an awkward row that doesn't have the same accessibility kind of thing. Yeah. And where do you put those connections? Are they in the floor? Is it something else? Yeah. And in this space too, we were talking about it earlier, the projector was something that in the past had, let's say, been a challenge with if they were hanging it from the balcony. I believe they used to hang it from the front of the balcony, right?
From the front.
Yeah. Which the balcony would, this was obviously before the renovation.
Yeah,
but
it was fine if you were putting on a performance about the earthquake in San Francisco or something to give you that visual bouncing effects.
Yeah.
But that was the issue with the projector. And that comes back to the issue on structure and trying to beef up the structure. There was so much bounce in the balcony, and obviously whatever you attach to it bounces. So the projector, issues with vibrations and clarity of projection on screen.
Yeah.
So we had to come up with this bracketing system off of the steel columns that are supporting the balcony to try to get away from the deflection of the balcony, put it on something rigid, a hard back, hard point in the structure, creating these sweeping brackets that also, again, we're trying to keep it fit and fitting the design within the space that we're in. So it's that a little more, a little more heritage, something that looks hand fabricated and a little more industrial, crafted. So some sweeping brackets just was a simple way to try to make that fit, try to get the projector off of the balcony, but put it on a hard point. And then between the sweeping brackets, an HSS tube, which the new projector mount was mounted to. Yeah. And it seems to work.
Yeah, it's brilliant. Yeah. And that the sweeping brackets that you're talking about, they're on camera right now, but it sweeps upward. So the pipe is as high as it can be in the space while still mounted to the column, right?
Right. And
so it's
maintaining the air gap between the top of that pipe and the underside of the balcony.
Yeah, it's a great way to get that point as high as you can while still being rigid and not actually affixing it to the balcony. And something that's fairly unique that we don't see often.
Right.
It's certainly something that a lot of people think they can mount things to a balcony and it'll be fine. And even in newer spaces, it's usually not. Even if it were mounted to the balcony today with all the work that was done to renovate the space, it just takes somebody walking in the balcony and it's enough of a movement for the projector to go. So
absolutely.
Yeah, it's a really great solution.
While we're talking about the projector and the mounts, in addition to that, I guess too, looking at the balcony, the guardrail we had to add because the existing guard was something like 26 inches high, and just
that's the existing there, right? The wooden bottom,
the wooden pickets that you see up there with the just a clear stained wood top rail. Was severely undersized and too low just for more contemporary standards, building code requirements. So we had to increase the height, but at the same time trying to keep the look and feel. So again, that handcrafted, more heritage look, went to painted steel pickets and top rail and posts, but introduced some finials within the pickets to again bring back that cast iron, more bit of a folky introduction of what could have been there back in 1920.
Yeah, it's cool. Yeah, kind of ties in with everything else. Even the the piece that was added for the projector is very much in the same vein. So it kind of brings it all together. Let's talk a little bit about, in this space, access to the pipe grid was a concern. And it's a concern in every theater that I've ever walked into. How did that play out in the design for this space?
The access, I guess, front of house access, just safety wise, whether it's scaffold or working off a step ladder, like we had to introduce tie-off points into the structure. That was a major undertaking in a century-old building. We were not just putting some eye hooks in the ceiling and calling it a day. We're having to get into the attic, reinforce all the trusses, put steel straps on hard points within each truss bay, reinforce the trusses, drop those welded rings down for tie off, but then just clear aisle space and level aisle space underneath the pipe grid where they could set up a rolling scaffold for access.
Yeah, the rake basically here, it's hard to tell, but it kind of starts right at the furthest from the stage front of house pipe. So it's a good way to still be able to get there.
Exactly. Yeah. And then the removable seats were part of that sort of decision making too. To let's put the adaptable seats and have that space for the pipe grid access in the same instance. You can obviously remove them and get at the pipe grid.
Yeah. Is that the first two rows?
First two rows.
Yeah. Which is great for all kinds of reasons. Different kind of audience or different kind of access needed. Yeah, it's great. Just to be clear, this was not putting in tie-off points onto an existing pipe grid.
No,
right? This is the common misconception that, we'll just tie off to something on the pipe grid that's maybe probably not engineered.
Right. It's a design for
not a life safety system.
Actual tie-off point. So when you introduce a 5,000 pound tie-off point, it has ripple effects again all the way up into the attic and the structure.
Yeah.
What are you tying it to? The lighting grid might be adequate to support the dead load of the equipment that's applied to it, the lighting and speakers, but 250 pound person falling 15 feet is what you're looking at. And I just remember the structural engineer and multiple different details and pretty elaborate sort of integration with the overall structure. It wasn't as simple as like you were suggesting. Just it's 1.5 inch pipe. It looks heavy enough. Let's just clip onto it.
It'll hold. Yeah. It's definitely one of those things that you need to have the engineers looking at that earlier in the project.
Exactly.
Not an afterthought for sure.
So in this case, we're already in the attic. We're already running new conduits for all the AV systems. We're already beefing up the insulation values, et cetera, et cetera. So while we're up there, it's an easy job.
Yeah.
But as long as you're thinking about it actively through the whole project.
Yeah. Easier than if you hadn't thought about it earlier. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So then kind of talking about how the stakeholders and yourself came to the decision or came to the realization of bringing in theater consultants. And because I know on this project specifically, there were multiple consultants from different parts of the theater world that came into play and all gave input at different points. So how did that kind of come about?
Yeah, I guess it mainly was a push and a drive from the Blythe Festival. So they have the obviously the experience and the technical knowledge just putting on performances of what's required in a performance. And, this isn't, the electrical engineer who does, typical building lighting to design a system. It's, far more complex and includes, everything from low voltage wiring to multiple conduit runs for current speakers, future speakers, foreseeing what the needs are in the future, whether it's projection or anything from speaker systems to theatrical lighting. So it was a drive from the theater to bring in the expertise, and that's where you guys came in and were extremely valuable because just one that sticks out is just the house lighting and getting the dimming correct. An engineer might be familiar with dimming a typical light fixture, but dimming to such a degree that, all of a sudden the bulb's going to turn out because you're under 10% or something.
Yeah, you went down to 10 and then it's popping off. Yeah.
So it's those minute details that, someone who's not familiar with how the systems work, you're going to find out the hard way that it's an issue before you get to that point. Yeah. So it was really a drive from, I think, the festival to bring on the expertise and they know what's involved, so they know how complex and what type of advice we're going to need in the design.
I think the house lighting thing is something that definitely I would drive home is another one of those things that's an afterthought. It's not as bad of an afterthought as life safety systems, but but it can be more noticeable to a lot more people, right? It's every single audience will see that, and it's something we see. I call it the popcorn effect. That even if they dim okay, they might all pop off at different times, or they might all pop on when you turn on the lights.
Or there's some low level flicker that is perceived.
As it goes.
When you're trying to create this illusion of the performance, the last thing you want is flickering or lights popping off and people saying, "Oh, that's annoying." And, and that experience dissolves, and all of a sudden they're back to reality and missing the opportunity.
That's kind of your functional way of dissolving the space, right? Is that good dimming, and when that doesn't work, it takes people right out of it. Would you say the role of functionality plays heavier in priority in a space like this compared to other spaces that you've been in, or would you say that aesthetics is actually more priority?
I would say the function sort of governs all in this type of space. Make sure it functions first, and then the aesthetics can't be lost, I guess, in the design process, but the function sort of outweighs everything else.
Yeah.
Like we're talking with the lights. If the lights don't work correctly,
they can be a great color temperature, but
yes, if they don't dim to what the levels you actually want to create the atmosphere, unfortunately, it's just not a successful theater space.
Yeah.
And that's everything. The ventilation was, another big one because it generated so much noise before that, again, it's just a distraction.
Yeah.
So we had to make sure it was baffled correctly. The ductwork was internally insulated to reduce the amount of vibrations and noise, and the systems, the actual motors and fans were actually off stage back of house areas. So we had lots of duct travel, and the actual fan was, quite a distance away, but the function inevitably was the more important, crucial role here. The aesthetics, I guess we wanted to preserve that sort of vintage 1920s character. It has that folksy, county agricultural type of barn feel. Yeah. And I think that's what makes the Blythe Festival unique and special. So after you get the function right, you just want to preserve that, that heritage, the original flavor and feel of the space. Otherwise, it's another theater that could be located anywhere. You want to make sure it's unique and people are coming for a unique experience. So you want to preserve that essence, but the function ultimately governs. You need everything to work and for people to be comfortable.
We talked a little bit about Sightlines. Let's talk a little bit about acoustics. In this space, it was a bit more of a try to keep it as live a space as possible. Yeah. Is it something that, or I guess the question is really, where does that come into your process? Like at what point does that typically come to mind? You were talking a little bit about acoustics of the floor and that kind of thing.
Yeah. So acoustics in here, we had, I guess, the benefit of, again, the Blythe having performed here for decades before. So they knew how it functioned. They essentially the program was keep it as acoustically similar as possible to what it was. So in this case, we were lucky. We're just trying to preserve and maintain what was here versus trying to recreate something from scratch. But considerations with the flooring, the underlayments in the floor so they don't creak, the amount of carpet in the space, the ceiling tiles, we're patching, repairing, replacing ceiling tiles so that we're not altering the acoustics of the space. They liked, the reverb time. They liked how live it was in the space. So just maintaining it as much as we could. It's easier than reinventing something from scratch.
A lot of times we get the call of we need to fix it, and we're doing renovations, and what can we do, and that kind of thing.
Exactly.
So we can go in and do reverb time analysis and acoustic simulation and all that kind of thing, and figure out if acoustic treatment is necessary and how much. And we've done a couple of projects like that with you too. But thankfully in this space it wasn't a concern. Is it a concern for some shows and not others? Probably. But it's definitely a common thing that we get asked. The point in the process that is too late that we often see is the kind of like we were talking about the life safety systems, is everything's in already. And walls are finished and everything. And now what can we do? Well,
now you have to hang baffles, or you have to introduce absorptive or reflective materials where you weren't initially intending them to, and now you're destroying the essence of the design or the function of the space. And it becomes a hindrance to what it could have been. And it's a lot more work to install. Right. Usually I'm using the issue as the opportunity. So if there's an issue with too much liveness or too much reflectivity, then you use the baffling as a focal point of something, slatted walls or whatever to absorb. And it's an opportunity versus an issue. But like you say, if it's not planned, then all of a sudden it is an issue.
What would you say are misconceptions that you commonly heard about what needs to happen in the theater? What you expected going into it that it wasn't like that kind of thing? Was there anything as you're going through the process that you thought, I didn't think that was going to be an issue, that kind of thing?
Probably, maybe not so much that. It's just sort of the impression or the, going into it, talking to various user groups or staff. Like it's a complicated space, but it's not overly complicated when you break it down into its individual components. The perception is it's a very complex type of building and environment, and there's so many systems that it's baffles the mind how it all works. But
yeah.
it's just like any other project. Once you get into it and learn what the requirements are, know what you don't know, I guess, at the time. And once you understand the individual systems, then you can build a mental map of how everything comes together. But it's not quote unquote rocket science once you understand the various components. And working with, if you're talking AV, working with someone like you guys, tech direction, just to understand it, to break it down, just make it understandable into its, constituent components. Once you understand the various things, it's just it's simplified, I guess, at the end of the day. But anyway, going into it, everyone's always, whenever you show up for a meeting or something, there's just so much to think about. We don't know if we can get through it. There's, we're not sure how to make it happen, I guess. But
in that case, it's just make sure you have the time, and make sure everyone can think through it, and and the right people are in the room, that kind of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Once you hear from everybody, the specialists, whether it's AV or structural or mechanical, you break it down into the components, and it becomes a very achievable project, I guess, once you take the time and understand all the various parts.
I like that, kind of treating it as different projects all in the same space. Like you were talking about, like commercial kitchen is going to have completely different needs than
absolutely. So you
the
bring
sound system, like
commercial kitchen consultant. That's all he does. He understands the flow, the equipment, the integration. Okay, we broke that component out. Now it's on to the AV systems. Well, let's understand what you need for speakers and lighting and future proofing the space, so we can run conduits here, there, and elsewhere to make sure we can fish lines down the road. It reminds me of the analogy of, like, two people want an orange, but one of them wants the peel, the other wants the actual inside of the orange. And everyone can have what they need as long as everyone communicates, and the whole project can come together in that way. It's not that the commercial kitchen means the audio system can't work properly because of some kind of hum or something, as long as it's planned out and everyone's figured it out. Were there any resources that you used in starting to work on this project or throughout it that you would recommend people for understanding theater spaces generally? I guess not a particular resource or if it's a reference guide or a book. We do have graphic standards and books that we would turn to in the design, but generally it's understanding how the people, the group, the users function in the space. So I would come here, they would actually run through, rehearsals, how they prep for this, where they plan for that, where do they fabricate the sets, how do they actually use the space during a performance. So it's geared towards that particular user. So it's not a guide, but it's the ability to listen and just sit in the space, work in the space, and just know and understand how it works, versus a guide, because it's specific to this building and this group, the Blythe Festival. Even though there are other user groups, I mean, they're the predominant user of the space. So if you can understand how they use it in a very complex way, someone who comes in and uses it in a more simplified way, you're able to make it work for that other user group. So it's not a guide, but just probably the ability to listen and to walk through the managers and the directors and the set designers of how they like to use the space, how they've used it, what works and what doesn't work for them. Asking the question, what doesn't work for you, is almost as valuable as what does generally.
Usually they're happy to tell you that.
Exactly. And
it comes to top of mind easy.
So no particular guides, but just the ability to listen and to just come to the site and be in the space for lengthy periods of time to understand how it works and doesn't work.
Cool. I like that. The end user is the resource. They're your best resource.
Yes.
Cool. Thinking of people that are looking towards renovating a space or building a new space, can an architect help to budget for a project and then try to keep it within budget as it goes along?
That's generally one of our key tasks and requirements, I guess. We're often the go-to consultants, I guess, and we're trying to coordinate everyone from subconsultants to contractors to user groups, owners, and specialty consultants.
Yeah.
So we're kind of the hub that all the information flows through. So we're generally in the best place to help budget. We can reach out to all the specific user groups. The consultants gather all the information, forecast budget. We've done other buildings of similar nature before, so we have the records and past tenders and bid results that we can turn to and try to come up with appropriate budgets for the project. There's nothing worse than coming into a project and somebody, their uncle or their sister brother have designed something before, and that happened to be 20 years ago in a completely different space, and they throw a budget at the project, and we're provided with something before we even get into it to say, here's our budget. Work towards that, and it's completely unreasonable, and everyone is scrambling to try to cut cuts or make it fit, versus the inverse of that. Bring us on board, bring all the specialty consultants on board, get all the information, find out what the program is, what the design is, come up with an appropriate budget from day one. Bring in all those user groups, whether it's AV consultants or commercial kitchen suppliers, get all the specialty knowledge gathered up and derive that budget. But ultimately the architect, can, and we often do put the budgets together.
Yeah, cool. So important to, when somebody's thinking about doing it, start with the consulting. Start with getting people on board to figure out what you should do, rather than starting the other way with
taking a guess at it, or
and then telling your board, we're going to do this and it'll only cost this much and we're going to bring on this architect.
Now that it's been approved by a council or a committee. Now we're going to go out and hire the consultants and tell them what the budget is.
What we need.
It very rarely ever works out successfully that way.
Yeah. We see it a lot too. And even just in simple AV systems, that it's, we have this much money, give us this. And could we give you something? Will you be happy with it more than a year? Probably not. Like that kind of thing. Yeah,
absolutely.
So it's a common thing. Mm-hmm. We talked a little bit about house lights and that kind of thing. I want to talk a little bit about stage lighting and what went into the grid and how that came to be. Do you recall how that process came together?
It mainly was derived from the technical manager, I think, at the festival, and they're providing the parameters, the pipe grid spacing, the size of pipe, the heights, what they need to function for every any given performance, whether it's on stage or back of house, front of house, lighting requirements.
Yeah. It was kind of based on the existing, right? It was kind of
roughly,
give us the same functionality and more.
and more. Add a few more rows of pipe. Make sure the capacity is beefed up so we can, triple the amount of lighting we have. And same with any balcony mounted lights and fixtures and speakers. But the technical director was generally giving us the direction based on their wants and needs, and projecting out for future plays, what they can do now or could do in the future.
That's something if there is nobody at the space to help figure that out, that's something that we often help to figure out what that grid could look like. But important thing for us is we always recommend you should get it engineered. You should have an engineer design it, and we can help with that, connecting with people that can do that kind of thing. But it's not quite to the extent of the life safety system, but it is more than you think.
I would call it a life safety system. In essence. I mean, it has to hold a certain load, and you're relying on it, protect your life when you're up on a scaffold or a ladder.
Shouldn't be hanging from it, but it's keeping something from falling on you for sure.
But I mean, sometimes the tie-off points are integrated within the grid, as long as it's true, engineered correctly.
It could be one engineered system. For sure. And in this case, they've got a psych, they've got a couple of travelers, kind of a typical proscenium stage that doesn't have too wide of wings, so the audience isn't too far off of sightlines. So that all kind of helps. It is a relatively low ceiling for a theater stage. That was something that I recall. It was always a question of how can we make that better, and it's really just a matter of how high can the ceiling be, and keeping as much HVAC and other things out of that space so we can get as high as we can.
In this case, we had the HVAC in the attic. We had the ability to run all that over top of the proscenium, the stage. So we had that advantage.
everyone wants to move the ceiling higher in any space, but
Yeah.
that helps to at least get that out of the way.
Mhm.
So something that we deal with quite a lot in theater spaces, it's unique to other spaces, and we sometimes have to advocate for, is the control system and how custom that needs to be usually. That it, like you were saying before, talking to the end users and all of the end users and how it needs to work for them.
Yep.
Does that, in your process, does that come into play early on in the discussion, or is that usually you would come to us or have a consultant figure that part of it out?
Yeah, usually, the consultant's figuring it out, working with the user group, telling us what the requirements are. I remember in this case, just the amount of conduit runs and data runs, it was just, fairly extraordinary compared to any other building. Access in the attic, the walkways, in the past they had sort of tromped all over attic insulation and run wires willy-nilly in the attic,
making down boards and
making do the best they can. But now we're planning for it. We're actively making the conduit runs. We're making, whether it's data trays, cabling management, actively looking at that stuff before we are even designing the space. So we know what the requirements are. We know the conduit's running, the data lines are running. Yeah, we can plan for just coordination with mechanical, electrical, structural. So just advocating, I guess, for knowing that information as soon as possible, right at the outset of the design, because it can have a dramatic impact on what's visible or behind the stage, behind the scenes, what needs to work together, what's conflicting with something else. Conduits are, every job, the conduits keep coming up as not an issue, I guess, but a conflict. Inevitably, every year, the conduits, there's more. The size grows, the quantity grows. People are trying to future-proof buildings and put conduits everywhere. But in a theater, it's doubly important. Hard to predict where technology is going, so you're trying to anticipate, future speaker locations, future projecting locations. What other technologies on the horizon where you're going to need a hard line connection. Yeah, the sooner the better. Yeah.
Your team has always been great about early on, as soon as something's going towards what are we doing for conduit? Getting us involved.
I'm on the phone with Dan, I need some help.
Which is great. For clients. So I think it's sometimes, why would we need to call the AV guys, or why would we need a theater consultant to figure that out? But it's definitely, it's something we advocate for on behalf of the technicians that are trying to make these spaces work. That they're the ones at the end of the day trying to get a cable from that corner to that corner and how to get there without going all the way around the building, because the cable can't go a certain length and all that kind of thing.
In the AV booth, the physical space requirements for racks is pretty extraordinary. So
and that just keeps growing too.
If you don't have just in this modest sized theater, if you don't have a rack storage, 4x8, 4x10, 6x12, like it just keeps growing. And that's a massive amount of space for a small AV booth. If you don't anticipate early on, that's just a massive impact on seating, on layout. So it's like
Cost,
any other, any other major system, be it mechanical space or an electrical room. If you don't bring on the expertise initially, you're going to be handcuffed, and those disruptions are just going to ripple consequently down the road. But
put a little bit of time into it now, and then your technicians will cost you less in the future, that kind of thing, right? And they'll have less headaches trying to get things around.
Absolutely. Less headaches for everybody. And as designers, architects, knowing the space requirements, that's the biggest thing. What are the physical space requirements? And then you have your 4x8 box you can stick on your plan, and you've accounted for it, planned for it. Same with the conduits. There's a bundle from point A to point B, and let's not put a beam in the center of it.
And in this case, there was a lot of talking about racks. A lot of people think we'll just put all the equipment in that room, but then that room needs a ventilation system, needs a full HVAC setup. So that's something for sure for people to try to consider as early as they can.
The cooling demand is incredible, and it's oftentimes a dedicated mechanical system specifically for the AV booth or the rack space, and that can mean a mechanical upgrade from 2 tons to 4 tons or whatever the number is, but it's just more space, more volume, more weight for systems. So you need to account for it day one type of thing.
Yeah. Is there, we were talking about acoustics, we were talking about HVAC. Is there something around HVAC baffling and things with a space like this that's unique to have it as silent as possible? That kind of thing?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So like I was saying earlier on, that was one of the drawbacks of the old system. So the ducts generally were too small, creating a lot of whistling, rushing of air.
Yeah.
So we had to make sure the ducts were oversized and there was enough length and baffles within and acoustically lined duct. To make sure it is quiet once it arrives at the space. But generally we're upsizing the ducts to try to slow the velocity of the air movement to reduce the amount of whistling and the amount of perceived air rushing or noise from the space.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah. And both on stage and an audience. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then booth, if it's a rack in the booth.
Last thing you want is a bathroom exhaust fan cranking on in the middle of a performance.
And then you need to add more program sound to be able to hear. Yeah. Cool. Last question, I think, in terms of talking about future technologies and future proofing and everything. We have clients ask all the time about how to design the space for, like, is it going to go immersive? Is it going to be something that we need a lot more projection, or is there going to be some other technology that they need to consider? And one of the things that we see in a lot of spaces with existing architecture and trying to put AV systems into them, things like, where do you put the speaker that it's not going to be an obstruction or an eyesore, or where it's going to be in the best location to cover, but then not be those things. When you're designing a space like this, how does that conversation go usually when you're talking about like future proofing things?
I guess you anticipate to a certain degree, but inevitably it's so hard to predict where the technology goes that you take it to a certain level, and you're talking about, I think, more or less the technology available today with a bit of foresight. But to think that you're going to anticipate everything is just, oftentimes overkill, and it ends up inevitably being shifted one way or the other. So I think in this case, it was a lot of, we use this many speakers, or we think we're going to be using this many projectors in the future. Let's plan for these specific areas. But, if something dramatically shifts, there's no sense in planning or putting through the expenditure now to think we can predict everything. But you just have to, I think, anticipate for the short to midterm and leave the future to the future.
Yeah, just have enough conduits.
Have enough conduits. Have enough conduits, and in the future, it's not a conduit. It's probably more of a service chase that's 8 feet in diameter or something to run enough wire. But I remember in this case, we kept, I think, 2 steps forward and 1 step back. Let's do this. Well, we don't really know if we're going to go to that extreme. We don't know how it's going to use. Let's take a step back and just put it to these specific, 3 or 4 locations for whether it's speakers or lighting, projectors. Let's make sure we have a bit of flexibility, but there's no sense, having conduits in a 12-inch grid on every wall in the space. It's just, overkill, and inevitably it's not going to get used.
Yeah. And these days, most of, like, looking at the near-term future, most things are moving to networked, and it's something that you can, to a certain extent, some technology isn't good with it, but you can drop switches different places and then spread out your topology, that kind of thing. We try to recommend just do the best you can with the space, and then try to be budgeting for some kind of an upgrade, whether or not it's going to need to happen, that kind of thing.
And to have the accessible spaces. So whether it's an accessible ceiling or an accessible attic space, accessible, underside of floor, raised floor, pedestal floor system, or whatever, but have the ability to do some open air runs somewhere from point A to point B in the future.
Yeah. We've seen some pretty cool stuff coming from a couple of different companies, but like my mind thinks of gala systems with flooring that can be raised and different sections of the audience, and it's very versatile. But then also you can access the underside of the floor and everything. Yeah. and some other stage technology we've seen recently with Harlequin Floors has a new stage deck that can be switched on and off from a dance floor to give that spring to a flat theater floor. And it's essentially blocks built into the bottom, and it's not pneumatic. It's another system that they can press a button and everything fires. And so it's a one button press and you're doing a dance show, and another button press and you're doing theater. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's all, there's some really cool technology coming. But in terms of trying to prepare for the future, I guess what I'm getting at is there's people working on how to make the current spaces work better in the future too.
Right.
So so you don't have to have, like you said, the 12-inch grid of conduit necessarily. There are better ways coming to build spaces or to renovate spaces to make that all possible.
Right.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah, interesting.
I think that's a good note to end on. Thank you so much for being here and, and talking about this. And
great venue, great space to have the conversation in. I suppose being involved in the theater in this process and the renovation. Yeah, just an interesting project, and I guess very happy with the end results. And
it looks great.
Working well.
Works great. Yeah. Cool.
I appreciate it. Thanks, Dan.
Yeah, thanks, Jason.
Yeah.
You've been listening to Sightlines, a podcast brought to you by the team at Tech Direction. If you're interested in learning more about designing performance spaces and systems, be sure to subscribe to our podcast series. We'll continue to bring you insights from industry experts across architecture, theater management, technical design, and production. At Tech Direction, we offer expertise in everything from architectural lighting design to acoustics and AV integration. Whether you're designing a new theater or renovating an existing one, we can help you navigate the complexities of creating a space that works for everyone. To get in touch with us, visit our website at techdirection.com or find us on social media. For specific project inquiries, email us at projects@techdirection.com. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you on the next episode.